Welcome in, everyone. This is another edition of the Full-Time Roundup podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Brackett. Joined alongside me today, back, a long-awaited return, Danny Brams. It's the two Dannys, Danny squared. You know, we had you on for the MLS preview. Now we're going to have you on for the MLS review as well as MLS playoff preview. Danny, Decision Day was this weekend. Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed my decision day. I was mostly focused on the Charlotte FC match because of fandom, but I loved the way things broke. I love, Charlotte was able to eliminate DC from the playoffs. There was a lot of late drama in the West as to who was going to get the number one seed out there. LAFC pulled it out, which I had thought the Galaxy had it kind of going away. But love decision day. Love the way it all. I love that it was a little earlier. 6 o'clock kickoffs in the East.
It was nice.
It was kind of nice. So all in all, great decision day, great season. It feels like a million years ago that we did that season preview, but I'm happy to be here to talk about some of our takes that went well, some that didn't go so well, etc. So.
Well, it was a long season, and I'll give you that. I mean, it was forever ago. And let's just talk about the MLS season as a whole, just before we go into our takes here. Like, what did you enjoy the most out of this season? Was there something that stood out specifically this year that you missed in other years, or vice versa?
I don't know. I mean, I, at the risk of just sounding like a total myopic homer for the second answer of a question in a row, I just really enjoyed a much stronger Charlotte FC team. The team was, finished fifth in the East. Then they've been picked to be last in the East by a lot of people. It was the highest finish the club ever had. Got a home playoff match to look forward to now, and it was there was some bad stretches that I had. We called Dean Smith out on, the coach. We told him the team wasn't playing very attractive football when they weren't, but for the most part, they did play very attractive football most stretches of the season, and that was just a joy to watch. I liked a lot of things. There were some other stories I liked also. I liked Colorado making a run for a little while there. I'm a big Georgi Mihailovic fan, but they finished the season on 4 straight L's to sort of hurt there. They were competing for potentially like a top seed in the West at one point. I liked to see Atlanta struggle, although they backdoored into the playoffs. St. Louis fell back down to earth. I thought that was great. Nashville struggled. DC United, like I said, Charlotte knocked them out of the playoffs. So just like, I guess it's Schadenfreude or whatever, but I like to see some of the teams that I dislike sort of not do well, I guess what I could say. On the flip side, I like the Minnesota story for everything that they went through with Emmanuel Reynoso, not coming back from Argentina, and, this player who's supposedly one of the best players in the league, like one of the best midfielder creators in the league, Reynoso, and for him to screw his team over essentially, and for them to actually do better without him, I thought was really great. Loved, I loved the season that Columbus Crew put together, just a model club in the last couple of years, and like what they're building is great. Not a huge fan of LAFC, but they finished super strong. They went and earned that number one seed. Got it they took it on the last day, but they had to win a lot of matches to get there. We'll talk about Miami. I'm not a huge fan of the Miami story, but maybe that story's not over yet. Maybe they'll find a way to crash and burn and put a sad ending to that story. It would be kind of fun. I probably would appreciate it a little more if that happened.
Absolutely. I mean, you kind of started off that with, you really enjoyed watching Charlotte FC. You thought, we improved things. I think, zooming out a little bit, obviously that's true for me as well. But I think the league as a whole just played some really, really good soccer this year, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
You had the 2 LA teams who were very dominant, probably my 2 favorite MLS teams to watch other than Charlotte FC, especially Galaxy. They just played really pretty football. And then you had some surprisers like the RSL story, like you mentioned. I thought, I really enjoyed watching them play, especially when they had Julio on the pitch before he made his move to Europe. I mean, that guy was balling out. I couldn't believe my eyes. The Timbers were like a really fun team for a while under Phil Neville. I didn't know if that was gonna crash and burn or not. And it's gone okay.
They looked really, really bad at first, but Evander finally got going, and
Yeah.
and they were pretty impressive. Yeah.
No, Rodriguez on the wing was good. Columbus, like you said, they're just an absolute wagon of a team. They have just so much depth. They've completely constructed that roster to be really well. I will say one thing about the MLS that I didn't love. We touched on it a little bit, and it won't be a long point here, but I thought the
go as long as you want, man. Go as long as you need.
The refereeing for me left a lot to be desired, especially at the start of the season. It was just such a disaster at first that it just felt like you lost kind of the essence of the game in a way because it was dictated by one man. And that was not just at Charlotte FC games that I was at, but it was just like a league whole ordeal. I wasn't a big fan of the US Open Cup structure that kind of took the heart and soul out of it.
A red X on the MLS decision there for sure.
And probably the biggest thing, the League's Cup, was just an absolute monumental failure, in my opinion. And, it wasn't just because Charlotte FC got knocked out early, but I would say 80 or 60% of the MLS fan base didn't get to watch their team for an entire month in the middle of the summer with no sports. And it took me a while to get back going a couple months ago once the season kicked off because I was almost checked out for a second just because we hadn't played soccer in a month. And I it was weird.
Totally agree. Something's got to change. It's you get blinded to it when your team makes a win, gets into the knockouts of Leagues Cup. It doesn't feel that bad, but when you're grouped, it's just an absolute nightmare, and it was horrible. And I apologize to anyone who went through it last year, and we weren't like understanding enough of what they'd suffered because stuff. I hate to be that person that like. It doesn't affect, it's not bad until it affects me directly, but in this case, it did take that like direct experience of seeing how bad it was to just realize that this is not a good format for a vast majority of teams and fans, especially. And it should always be all about the fans. So when you're taking that many fans off and making it so that the fans can't really get into the season and lose all that steam and momentum in the heart of the season like that. Yeah, I agree. Something's got to change. Hopefully it will.
Yeah, especially just because it's in the middle of summer, right? We're in the dog days of sports. There is no sports going on. And that is when MLS is supposed to be capitalizing on no one has anything other to do than, to throw on an MLS game, which is MLS After Dark, a lot of fun. So that kind of bummed me out a little bit. And, you pile on Charlotte FC's awful start after the break. It made it even worse. And we went through that 4-game stretch. Thankfully, we've ended the season on a high note. So I'm super bought in and ready for the playoffs. But yeah, those were just the 3 things of my complaints. I've never been a big fan of Garber, but I thought he's done a good job with the whole Messi experiment and you're still seeing dominant teams other than Miami, which I'd like to see with the LA teams and Columbus as well. My last little air of grievances, and we've talked about this in group chats, is the playoff picture. It's long, it's a slog, and I feel like it's going to be stretched out a little bit too long, in my opinion.
Yeah, it will for sure. It starts. We're recording this right before the wild card matches start tomorrow night. So we're recording this on a Monday night. Wild card matches start on Tuesday, and we'll start to get the picture of who's advancing out of those 8-9 slots. But it's rough, man. There's another international. So we do the first round takes a week and a half or so, and then there's another international break before we get to like more games, and it's going to be like it's mid-October and it's going to be late November before we're finally through this thing and have a champion of the league, which I'm glad for more games. I do like the fact that the best of 3 series in the first round gives each team a chance to host. Obviously Charlotte wouldn't be hosting if that wasn't the case, so I'm pretty happy about that. I can't complain, but I can definitely commiserate and just kind of whine, if nothing else, about just how long it's going to take. Because I hopefully Charlotte FC upsets a few teams and is playing deep into those playoffs. But even if not, I'll be watching them. But it's going to take a while to get there to the grand finale.
No, without a doubt. And I just wish that the players just didn't report to international duty, and because it's so meaningless. These games aren't even like qualifiers or anything, so it's not like
Right.
they're missing international games. So I wish they could just say, hey, teams are playing. It's up to the players if they want to travel or not.
Right.
It doesn't really put the players in a good position. So there's never a good fix there. But I feel like there's got to be a better way here. But I mean, we'll see how it goes. And if we go on a deep run, I probably won't be complaining as much as I am right now. But let's go in and talk about our best take that we had in the preview, and then you cap it off with the worst one. DB, does
Sure.
any good takes that you had come to mind, and some bad ones?
I'm trying to think. I definitely know my worst take of the preseason by far, not even close. It was a bold. I admitted it was a hot take. It was a bold take when I put it out there, but I predicted disaster for the whole Miami old Barcelona experiment. I did not think they were going to do well. I think at one point I called them they'll be a fringe playoff team. Because I thought they were going to break down. Their old guys would get injured. They ended up setting the league record for most points ever in a season. So that's far, far, far from a fringe playoff team. I was way off, and I don't really have anything to say about it other than I wanted that take to be true. I wanted them to be bad more so than they actually were bad. So that's on me. I tend to sometimes I'm quick to bury like older players. I'm like, oh, that guy's old. He's going to break down. That guy's old. He's going to break down. That's kind of my leak in analysis and like my flaw, my bias or whatever. So yeah, I definitely thought Miami wasn't going to do it, but they sure as hell did it.
No, I mean, I like going bold. I like putting yourself out there. I'll go ahead with my worst take. I said that Charlotte FC 0% will make the playoffs this season. They ended up, starting out super hot. Was like as high as third place, and we finished in the fifth spot out of 9. So, I'm eating crow here. I did say, for the record, I would absolutely love to be wrong on this one. This would be one of those takes where if it's wrong, it honestly works out really well for me.
You gave yourself a win-win. Yeah.
Big time win-win. And I basically we were DP-less at the time. I think we had one DP. We were losing DPs.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of underestimated Dino's impact. I knew it would be a lot better, but I just didn't know the extent. Plus, we made some really good signings in the summer and kind of found some form here.
Sure.
We also conceded goals for fun, and we turned into the best defense in the league, basically.
That'll change your fortunes.
Yeah, so that was my bad take. I also said the Revolution might have a good year, and they sucked really badly. And Caleb Porter would be a good coach, and he also sucked pretty badly. So, you can't win them all, DB. It is what it is. We took our shots. We fell a little bit short, but we're still here, and I don't think anyone cares anyways.
I mean, hopefully, it's fun to always make predictions, obviously, but if I was really good at predictions, I would be gambling and making money on those predictions. But I think hopefully the reason people are listening to this show and enjoying the commentary and finding some insight is we're definitely better at responding to what actually happens and giving good, insightful thoughts and interesting, entertaining takes on what we know, what everyone knows has happened. So if the predictions didn't work out, I'm fine with it as long as people are having fun listening and able to enjoy, some analysis of things that actually did happen in real life.
Absolutely, and especially with these playoffs, anything can happen. So throw out any predictions out the window of what we go over today, because literally things could especially in this league, could get weird. Now, our best take. My best take, I went big on LA Galaxy, and I knew that Ricky Puig would ball out. I really liked Paintsel and Gabriel Peck, and they ended up being, I think second in the East in terms of their position. So that was probably my best take. It was probably maybe a little obvious to some, so I'm not going to pat myself on the back too much. But for the last 3 years, they've been perennially awful in a dumpster fire. So they really turned it around this year finally.
Yeah, I think my best take might have been, it's kind of lukewarm, but I liked New York City, and they did kind of stumble right at the end, but they went through some stretches where they were looking real nice and they were looking like they might threaten to be one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the East. They ended up 6th right behind Charlotte. Surprisingly, I still think so. I'm kind of searching for like a good take that I had on that preseason show, and I think that probably was it. In that, a lot of people were saying New York City's like in a total free fall, and I was like, I like them to actually compete this year, and they did compete, and they're a threat in the playoffs. We'll see. They got to play Cincinnati, which I wouldn't. Charlotte's playing Orlando, but I would not have minded if Charlotte ended up playing Cincinnati, because I think Cincinnati's gettable, very vulnerable right now with their they're the team that's kind of breaking down here at the end of the season for now. So,
yeah, I mean, you also weren't big on Austin. You weren't.
Yeah,
you weren't big on Austin.
And Austin finally did. Like I said, Austin's never really going to be a success until they fire Josh Wolf, which they finally did sack him at the end of the year. So
that needed to be done.
Playoffs. Yeah.
In RSL, they weren't great last year, and you said they could take a step up. They took a significant step up, being third in the West. So
yeah, Chicho Arango, baby.
I thought that was a great take by you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. No problem, man. Always here to gas you up. And I believe you said Colorado too. You thought they'd take a step up. That might have been Matt, because he was a big Chris Armas guy. Say maybe he could find something, but I thought that was just fun to go ahead and review and just see kind of where those takes landed here. Now we're going to get into just we'll go ahead and say, we'll start with Coach of the Year. Now, I'm sure awards. This could as little awards. I think, you could be a little homer here, but I don't think you're wrong for doing that if you go the direction I think you are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be homerish in like all my picks. It's just tough. I know that teams – the real winner of the Coach of the Year is going to be someone who coached like one of the top 2 or 3 finishing teams of the year. It'll probably be Martino or Nancy. Martino from Miami or Nancy from Columbus. I get that they'll probably win the award, but I got to indulge my inner homer here and give my Coach of the Year award to Dean Smith. It's not even close as far as I'm concerned. When you talk about exceeding expectations, establishing a culture, changing a club's identity, like – and doing it with the same pretty much batch of players they had the season before. I mean, they did bring in Abada. They got more out of Ajimong. They brought in Pep Biel late, but they didn't have Swiderski for a good stretch of the season. For a long time, they were playing with no DPs. Dean took his time to figure some things out. Diani was a newcomer that didn't really make his mark necessarily. He's out of the rotation here now in the crunch time of the season for older veterans. So it's like he really took the same sort of ragtag group for the most part that struggled so bad and like had to claw its way into like a pseudo playoff game last year. And he had them looking, I mean, they were a lock to be in the playoffs since August, even since that Leagues Cup break, even when things were not going good, they were in great position. Columbus, sure, Nancy is a great coach and he's an awesome coach for sure. He definitely makes Columbus better, but he's also got some of the best players in the league. He's got MVP candidates on his team. And same thing, Tata Martino in Miami. I mean, I know people will say like, oh, it's actually harder to coach superstars, because you got to manage all the egos and all that stuff. That's no way. Tata Martino has the easiest job in MLS. It's ridiculous to give him your Coach of the Year vote as far as I'm concerned. So it's Dean Smith by a mile for me. And, I'll kiss the badge when I say it. Like, it just is what it is.
Yeah. There's sometimes I feel like I would push back, but I'm not on that because you mentioned, Wilfred Nancy, Tata, whatever, Greg Vanny, Trundolo. Those guys have better rosters. Yeah. And it's not even like they have bench players that would be stars on some of these other MLS teams. I agree. I think it's, a team that's not as good, and the coach just had these guys going for me, that's Nick Cushing at NYCFC. I do think that they hit on their signings, and that definitely helped them. But I thought they were horrible last year, and I thought that he's done a good job. He's probably, I would say Dean, but for the sake of, our awards, I'll go with Nick Cushing here. I mean, I think Wilfred Nancy's the best coach in the league, but
he's not the coach of the year.
Yeah, exactly.
This year. Yeah,
exactly. So I completely agree with your sentiment there, and that's why I'm picking Nick.
I'll shout out an honorable mention to Eric Ramsey, Minnesota coach. He came in right. He was hired at the start of the season. He had to deal with the Reynoso thing. He has Minnesota playing some of its best ball, much like Dean Smith has Charlotte playing its best right here at the end of the season. Same for Minnesota. Same for Stevie Cherundolo at the LAFC, and even Tata has his team on a nice win streak entering the playoffs. But I got to go with Dean, and I just have more respect for exceeding expectations when it comes to a Coach of the Year award, rather than fulfilling them. So
I completely agree. My honorable mention is Schwartz for the other New York team, New York Red Bulls. He came in from a different league. Forsberg was out for a while there.
Yeah, and he was really not much of a factor this season. He brought him with so much fanfare.
Yeah, he started hot and then got hurt, and then they really struggled, but they were able to kind of find, they weren't so reliant on him. I thought they did good enough. They were a playoff team last year, so it's not like he inherited a bad squad. But I don't think their front office does many favors for Schwartz. I think they don't really go out and get big guys other than Forsberg. They depend a lot on youth. I think,
and their style,
their style. So it's just I don't know. I thought I thought he did a pretty good job for his first season in MLS. It takes some coaches, it takes a while to adjust, right? I feel like Dino had to adjust here, and you saw Charlotte almost transform over the season to kind of really put his stamp on it. And I think Sandra Schwartz had the same, I guess, evolvement. I don't even know what the word is. It's late.
Evolution.
Evolution. Jeez, gosh, it's been a long day, DB.
I'm here for you.
Let's see here. Most disappointing team.
Whoa, most disappointing team. Probably Toronto, to be honest. I mean, I know they were always a mess. They never really got it together, but they spent a lot of money. They have Insigne and Bernardeschi. They could never make them work. They could never keep those guys happy. And I think that's your most disappointing team for sure. With maybe a shout out to Nashville, who was just horrible despite having, a former league MVP holding it down for them. And they had brought in Surridge as well, or Surridge, excuse me. But for me, Toronto's the most disappointing because they were just always a mess. And they have two world-class Italian talents that should have been able to achieve much more.
I like both of those shouts. Nashville, too. I think, Hani Mukhtar was a stud last year, and I think Surge is a good striker. I can't believe.
Yeah,
they crushed Charlotte at home once, and they completely played us off the pitch, and I was surprised how bad they did. I'm going to say St. Louis and Philly, respectively. St. Louis, from the top to almost as bottom as you can get, just disaster. They fired their coach, no DPs. What happened? I kind of like how that take kind of settled here. So I think that for the West was an obvious one, and then for me, Philly, Jim Curtin, perennial playoff team. I think Philly still have a good team. They were devastated with injuries, playing a lot of games in the Champions League and everything like that, but. You expect they gave him an extension too at the start of the season, I believe. Yeah, and he they didn't make the playoffs, especially with such a good young core and some stars there. So they got better after Leagues Cup when they got a little healthier, but I was just overall pretty disappointed with their season. I feel them as a dark horse most years, to be honest.
They did get on a midsummer hot streak, but they just have too much talent to not be in the playoffs. When you talk about Kai Wagner, Quinn Sullivan, those are guys that should be those should be anchors on a playoff team, and they just couldn't quite pull it off.
Absolutely.
And I don't know what happened there. I really don't know what happened. I got to admit, because I think it was just kind of bad form, and it was just kind of it was one of those we'll right the ship. Oh, we'll right the ship. Eventually things will be fine. But then that goes on week after week after week, and somehow all of a sudden it's the end of the season and you're not fine. And it's like, oh wait, what happened? We were supposed to right the ship here, you know? So
Yeah, there was a point where I think early in the season, and they literally like a lot of their senior players were injured, and you saw Jim Curtin start depending on Quinn Sullivan, Jack McGlynn, like all these youngsters started to consistently make their
Right.
way into the lineup. And I think with the youngsters that has growing pains. And so I just feel like those youngsters kind of found their feet eventually. Plus Baribo kind of came back and started putting the ball in the back of the net.
I was gonna say they got they sold Julian Carranza.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe that's where they went wrong. Maybe they shouldn't have sold him. But Baribo was producing, you know. So
yeah, he was.
And so it's almost he's not as good as Carranza, but he was producing and he was getting goals. So and they got Gazdag and both Sullivan boys, like they definitely should have been better. And Kai Wagner like just serves up one of the best free kicks in the league still. So it's just I like the case for them as most disappointing for sure.
Absolutely. Now we'll do most disappointing player.
Oh man, I kind of want to double down and just give that my most disappointing to Bernadeschi, because he just should be so much better, right? Like he should be like one of the best players in the league, but he's got such an attitude problem. But I'm going to have some fun with this one, and I'm going to give it to everybody's favorite softie, Carlos Gil. You know, like this guy. I mean, I realize you can't keep it up forever, and he had, you know, some injury problems a little bit, but, you know, he put up some numbers, but he couldn't elevate his team. So I think finally it showed the weakness of like relying on just only one player and having a shit team built all around him. I'm looking up, 7 goals. That's, 5 assists. That's not the kind of numbers we're counting on from Carlos. So I don't like the guy. I think he's kind of whiny, and I think we're finally starting to see his era of MLS dominance is about ready to come to an end. You know, I think it's over for him, and it kind of at the bottom fell out sooner than many people would have expected. So sorry, Carlos.
Yeah, that's a tough one as a guy who I've seen just be absolute magic.
I mean, 7 goals and 5 assists used to be like a decent month for Carlos Gil, not an entire season, So
yeah, no, I think that's actually some great insights. I wouldn't have thought about that, to be honest. But I think that was good. I've been struggling because I was gonna say Hugo Kuipers for Chicago came in from the Belgian league.
Yeah.
I actually thought I called him out as being a really good player that could elevate Chicago, and they could go on a run with just all the additions they did. They ended up being terrible. But then you reminded me about Forsberg. I mean, only Kuipers had 10 goals and 2 assists, and Forsberg had 9 goals and 3 assists. So it's still like not terrible numbers. Kuipers did have 30 games while Forsberg had 20 games. So for Forsberg, that's a little bit better. But I think Forsberg was supposed to be like a superstar in this league.
Yeah.
And he didn't hit those. And Kuipers was supposed to be more of an elite striker. And I thought
Kuipers just a finisher. He was expected to be. Yeah.
I was thinking like 15, 20 goals easy, and he only had 12. And on the other hand, you had like Musa in Dallas, who I was liking. He had like 15.
Oh, Musa 20 was real
goals.
Nice. Yeah.
So he was really good. He was kind of the guy I wanted.
He's a candidate he's a candidate for newcomer of the year, I think.
Exactly. So
I think Hani Mukhtar is another candidate for a disappointing player. We talked about him on the last one, but even he had 8 goals and 8 assists, so he outdid my boy Carlos Gil in both those categories. So
yeah.
I'm happy to stick with Gil, even if some people might be surprised by that take.
De La Vega too was trash for Seattle. He big bust.
True, but he was like always hurt, right?
Yeah, no, that's true. I just remember we were shouting that out. We thought that kid was going to be really good. But you mentioned newcomer of the year. Let's get into it. Who do you think?
So I think it basically comes down to 2 dudes, and since I think that since I don't really like one of them, since one of them is the biter, who the vampire bat who likes to bite his opponent's necks and ears. I can't give him my newcomer of the year. Sorry, Luis Suarez. I'm going to give my newcomer of the year to Gabriel Peck for LA Galaxy. Just dominant. He's only 23 years old. He almost fits under young player, but Peck is just like so good. He's a joy to watch. He's worth, if you live out here on the East Coast like us, he's the guy you stay up late to watch, along with Ricky Puig. But it's and really Paintsville. Nice. I don't really like Paintsville as much. I think Paintsville started hot and kind of faded, but Peck picked up the slack all the way, and Peck was good start to finish. It's tough to really give it to anyone else. I think Suarez is going to get some votes, but I think Peck will probably win the award, and he should, as far as I'm concerned.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I had Peck and Suarez written down. I figured you weren't going to take Suarez and you'd get Peck, so that's why I had a backup for all mine just in case. But Suarez, 20 goals, 9 assists. I mean, there was reports coming out that the guy couldn't even walk in preseason, and then he goes and then he just balls out.
His back. He's got a bad back. He's not even able to play. Yeah,
he's taking injections every day for practice for his knees. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he ends up going and not only bagging 20 goals and 9 assists, being the third top goal scorer in the MLS, but he goes to Copa America. I witnessed it. That's why I say this, and balled out off the bench in the third place game and scored his last goal for Uruguay. So, I mean, swan song of a career, but I mean, he went to Grêmio and they won the Brazilian league. Then he went to Miami and they won the East. So, and these were two teams that were dog shit last year, Grêmio and Miami. So
sure.
I mean, the guy just goes to places and elevates. So can't really hate on him for his play on the field. He was always dear in my heart for Liverpool and what he did there.
I know you got the Liverpool connection.
The character issues have always been there. So I can't fault you for that. But any honorable mentions other than the two we mentioned? Putting you on the spot. So
I can't. I want to give it to my boy Liel Abada, but I can't. He was not really good enough. No, I just think it's overwhelmingly going to be Peck or Suarez. There's no one else to vote for. Maybe Pep Biel, if he had a full season under him, could have done some stuff because he's actually shown some flashes lately. But Suarez, 20 goals. I saw Miami's the first team ever in MLS history, 30 years with 2 20-goal scorers on the same team in the regular season.
Which is just nuts. Yeah. It's nuts.
And I think on our preseason show, I was like, Suarez, he won't even play 10 games. He will play almost every game and scored 20 goals. So what do I know?
Yeah, I mean, Messi was a guy who was injured all the time, not the other way around. It's funny how that can work.
Suarez button hooked me. He totally faked me out with the whole injured at Grêmio thing all the time. So what can I? He got me.
No, he was. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else that I could think about, but really, I mean, I thought Nusa was good.
Peter Musa for Dallas, I would give an honorable mention. Why not? Sure. Jonathan Rodriguez for Portland obviously was good.
Yeah, as well. He was solid. He came in balled out. So
as they call him down in the Mexican League before he came.
No, I agree with that. Let's see here. Now, most improved player from last season to this season. This is in.
I'm gonna go with Minnesota. I'll go up to Minnesota and my boy Robin Lode. I mean, he's always been pretty solid, but he was just on a whole other level this year. He went from good to great, so I like that for most improved, rather than someone who was like horrible and just got kind of good. Like Robin Lode was absolutely lights out for Minnesota almost the whole year. Like the only reason they were able to survive that whole Reynoso debacle was because Lode was just like carrying the load, and he's a great Finland international, and he's fun to watch. He makes things happen. He destroyed Charlotte FC here in Charlotte. In like 20 minutes. In like 20 minutes, he just went off and had like 2 goals and an assist or something like that. So he's a baller. Seen him up close and personal destroy my team, and he was destroying a lot of the league. He's definitely my most improved / comeback player, whatever you want to call it.
You could say he passed the eye test for sure. I sat with you. We felt pretty good about that game. And within 25 minutes, that game was cooked.
Yeah.
It was bad.
So bad.
Mine couldn't be more obvious to me. Evander, 15 goals, 15 assists. He was dog water last year. He was supposed to leave, ended up staying. I guess Phil Neville convinced him to stay. Guy was a stud this year. So that's my most improved.
Stay tuned. I'm not done talking about Evander. Yeah, for sure.
He figured it out for sure. Now, best young player of the year. So there's a lot of young players.
Yeah.
And we're going to do under 23, so 23 and below.
23 and below, I could have gone, if we're going to say 23 and below, I could have given Suarez the newcomer and taken Gabriel Peck as my young player because he is 23 years old. I know for a fact, though, I'm just going to go with the chalk on this award because it's like 100%. It's going like literally every ballot that I saw the last couple of weeks of the professional writers who were submitting their ballots. It'll be a landslide. So I'm not going to try to get underneath that landslide. I'm just going to go with the flow on this one because he is a really great player. And he's super fun to watch. He's 21 years old. Diego Luna for Salt Lake. Chicho Arango was a huge part of Salt Lake's success early, but Diego Luna was like the man for them, like start to finish. He got totally screwed by U.S. Soccer, like not inviting him to the Gold Cup. Disaster. And he used that as motivation to continue to just ball out in the regular season. He's super fun to watch. He's like all over the pitch. He's just a freaking Energizer bunny, as they say. He just goes and goes and goes. And just the way he runs, he's kind of like stout and he's just like super. He's like a ball of hair flying everywhere. He's just really fun to watch. Love the kid. He's very productive. Let me look up his stats. But yeah, I think Luna is everyone's darling to win this award. RSL, they fell off a little bit, but they still finished, top 6 in the league. That's not just in the West, but top 6 in the league. I think they finished 3rd in the West.
Very good.
And that's all down to this man, Diego Luna, who sadly, I really hope that he stays in the U.S. soccer system because he's a really great player. And this is the kind of guy we need to be developing. And I hope that he will win this award. I'm like 100% certain of it. And I hope that he loves it. I hope he feels the love and continues to develop in this league for a long time. He's just really fun to watch.
Well, there we go.
Let me look up 8 goals and 8 assists, which I said those were disappointing numbers for Mukhtar, but Diego's only 21 years old. He's coming into his own. So, and RSL is more of he's less of a one-man team than a Mukhtar or a heel. So,
yeah,
and playing on the wing, not even centrally.
RSL had a ton of guys too. A lot of mouths to feed on that team. I'm really wrestling between 2 right now. DB, I've mentioned both of their names. I'm gonna go with Pat Angemon here, just a homer pick. And this is why, because I was debating between him and Jack McGlynn, because I thought Jack McGlynn this year is an elite player.
Yeah.
And he will follow the Aiden Morris kind of route and go to Europe and continue to ball out because Aiden Morris is a good player as well. But without Pat Angemon on the Charlotte SC team, we would not have made playoffs because we wouldn't have scored any goals in the first 15 games of the season, period. I mean, we talked about all the Apple TV and all the people were hyping up our old striker. I'm not even going to name his name because I don't even want to, but he came in, completely took Copetti's spot there. I said it, and scored, double-digit goals for us, who was on our legacy team last year, which is our right team, playing against nobody.
Yeah.
And he went and just was destroying defenders and scoring not tap-ins, but quality goals. And as his confidence grew, he evolved as a player over the season, and I don't think he's done yet. And he started to get some national attention later in the year, and it should have been all year because this guy is an absolute stud.
I love where your head's at. I can't fault the pick.
but Jack McGlynn's my honorable mention. So
Yeah.
Can't.
And Philly has those. That's another reason Philly's so disappointing is that they were just less than the sum of their parts because they have like great individuals like McGlynn, Quinn Sullivan, and just couldn't get together. So yeah, but I love the homer pick on this case. I'm all for. I support it.
Yeah, no. And then MVP. Let's hear it. You go first.
So this was a late change for me. Almost
Really?
the entire season, I was like Cucho's the MVP, and he is great. And I think he's the best player. I mean, Messi is Messi, obviously, but like Cucho is like a whole other thing. Like Cucho is really tough to beat, tough to stop. Only Charlotte FC was able to stop him all year for the most part. But I'm going to go back to Evander. Evander eventually came around to the idea that Evander is actually the MVP because there's just no chance Portland, Granted, I know that in reality, MVP almost always goes to the team, to the best player on the best team or the best player on like one of the best teams. But in this case, I got to go with Portland would not even be in this playoffs at all without Evander. Like that's just how they would probably be last in the West. And I know they just barely snuck into the playoffs and they got to play the wild card game against Vancouver and they'll probably win it and go on to play LAFC. I just think, I mean, without Evander, this is a last place team. I really believe that. And I don't really think much of Phil Neville as a coach and all this stuff, so just like, I just think Evander got it all together and had the team clicking. I'm not saying Cucho's not the best player. I'm not saying Messi is not otherworldly good with what he was able to accomplish because he certainly was. And like Messi's numbers in like the limited minutes he had due to injury are completely insane. I'm not going to deny that, but I gotta give this the 2024 MVP award to Evander. That's where my head's at.
It's a bold take, and I like it because 15 and 15 are ridiculous stats. I feel like he didn't get much national media attention. I mean, maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but I feel like there was a lot more focus on different names and not Evander, and he took a Portland Timbers team, like you said, that wasn't great, and a lot of question marks around that team in the offseason, and he made them pretty good. So I agree. I mean, obviously, I think, like you said, Cucho is the best player in the league. Maybe a little bit less than Messi, but still, I think, he could go.
Messi's Messi. Yeah. Messi's like a whole other thing. Yeah.
But I genuinely think Cucho could go to La Liga or the French league, and or
I mean, he was on in the Premier League on Watford, and they didn't really play him a ton.
Yeah, so I mean, I just think that he could make the jump again if he wanted to, and just be a stud again. But I'm gonna go with since you did off kilter, I'm gonna go off kilter. Ricky Puig or Ricky Puig, however you want to pronounce it. This guy, 29 games. He played almost every single game this season. We watched it live too. He quarterbacked he was basically the entire midfielder for LA Galaxy. He played good defense. He would literally pick it up from the center back and take it all the way. And the only reason he passed it was because he was putting Paintsel or Peck on goal to finish. I mean, without him, Paintsel or Peck don't even touch double digits each.
It was a sight to see.
Yeah, their really good stats were because of Puig. They finished second in the West after 3 really bad years. I think this guy is so good, and he's my personal MVP, and it's also why, because I predicted him to be MVP in the preview. I'm going to stick with it because I watched a lot of them. He's one of my favorite players to watch for the MLS.
He's silky smooth. Yeah, he's another one worth staying up late for if you're on the East Coast for sure. I can't be mad about it. And again, it's what he meant to the team that sometimes to me fits that whole most valuable criteria rather than straight up best player.
Absolutely. So we'll get to some more predictions. We'll see if we do a little bit better this time around. But we're gonna go from the playing game, each side of the bracket, and then who our finals are. So we'll go game by game here.
Let's game it out, baby.
Let's see here. So starting with the playing game, Vancouver and Portland. first?
I got to go with Portland, obviously. I mean, with my Evander pick, only makes sense.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this one, man, because on the
Why are
other
you
side,
struggling, dog?
you got Brian White and Gall. I like that team, but I do think Timbers are the better team. I don't like how they finished the season, but
Sure.
I feel
But
like
Vancouver finished worse.
yeah,
Vancouver lost like 4 in a row to end the year.
that is also true. I think that Evander and Rodriguez are going to get up for this game, and I'm going to go with the Timbers as well. On the other side, you have Montreal, Atlanta.
Got to go with Montreal. Montreal's a much more complete team than Atlanta.
I think Atlanta wins this one. I think that Marunchuk is going to just pull something out. I don't know. I feel like Atlanta are going to win this game, but it doesn't really matter because they're going to play Miami, and I think they're going to absolutely get smoked by Miami. So we'll start with the Eastern side. Miami and whoever for you it's Montreal, for me it's Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Miami. Are we going to both agree that Miami will win that game, or do you?
Yeah, I think Miami handles probably, and it doesn't even take the third game for them.
Yeah,
They should easily move on to the second
Miami,
round. Yeah.
Miami and 2 for sure. Orlando, Charlotte will play the winner here. How do you feel about this one as a fan?
I said earlier I would have rather probably played Cincinnati than Orlando. Orlando's just finishing the season a little bit better, a little hotter, if you will. But I'm going to go with the homer pick. I'm going to pick Charlotte to beat Orlando. I think they can go down, play a defensively sound game in game 1 on the road. Hopefully, if need be, take that thing to penalties and win in PKs, and then come back and win game 2 and then sweep the leg. I think, and if they don't win game 1, I still think they're a decent shout to win game 3 if they can get there on the road. I think if Charlotte can win its home game, they can win 1 of 2 in Orlando. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Charlotte in 3. Another homer pick. Don't really care. I just really like how we're playing right now, and maybe I'm getting a little too high based off how we ended the season. But
Right.
I mean, we couldn't play worse against Orlando the last time we played them. Bad taste in our mouth, and we're finishing the season high. I think that these boys have a score to settle, and I'm going to go Charlotte in 3. Now we both picked Charlotte FC, and we have played Miami pretty well. I guess the last game I think we still lost, but it was a closer game. Are you feeling confident about that game, or do you think Charlotte will or Miami will eventually beat us?
I think I can't. Here's where my homerism has to take a back seat, because I think it would just be maybe no one respects my picks anyway, but no one would respect my picks if I picked Miami to lose to Charlotte, unless Charlotte gets some help, and I'm not trying to wish injuries on people, but without some injuries affecting the way things go, I don't see Charlotte beating Miami now.
Unfortunately, I mean, we kept it close with them last time, but Messi should have had like 5 goals. I mean, Kalina was doing everything he could, so I'm going to pick Miami here. On the other side, the bracket for the East, no pun intended, Cincinnati, NYCFC. What do we think here?
So I think I'd be in bad faith of me to pick Cincinnati, since I've been talking about how beaten up they are and how I wish we were playing them. So I'm going to pick New York City to get the seed upset here, but I think they are all a better team. Santiago Rodriguez, maybe not quite as good as Luciano Acosta, but I don't think Acosta can one-man team his way in this. I like New York City's coaching, and I think they pull this one out in the series.
Interesting. I'm going to go with Cincy here. They've been there before. This NYCFC team has not really they did win it 2 years ago, but they were bad last year and a lot of overhaul. I'm going to go with Cincy. I just think that Lucho can bring his best stuff, and he has Orellano, I think is how you pronounce that
Orellano,
name.
yeah.
I think he's a fantastic player. They got some young guys that can step up here. So I think they'll get it done in 3, though. I think it'll be scrappy.
Okay.
Columbus Red Bulls.
Columbus and the Red Bulls. Columbus easily. No, I mean, Red Bulls tend to make things tough on their opponents, obviously, but I don't think that you'd be too worried about I don't think Columbus is going to be too worried about Red Bull style. They're just going to give the ball to Cucho and let him feed guys like Rossi and whatnot. And, Columbus also has a very stout defense. Steven Moreira, probably going to win Defender of the Year in the official vote. So I think Columbus wins pretty easily in 2.
Columbus in 2, 100%. LAFC, for you, or for both of us, it's Timbers. Do you think they pull off an upset?
We're going to see. Then Evander would really be the MVP if he could engineer a series upset
correct.
of LAFC. But no, I think LAFC is too good. Boanga's too good. Hanson Giroux is up in there. They're well coached. They
Don't forget about Bogusz. Bogusz is balling.
Yeah, exactly. And LAFC's won 5-6 games in a row. I don't see them losing to Portland. That's definitely not at home. And then I think they'll have that killer instinct to go get the second win on the road pretty easily.
They did have a spurt when Giroud first came that I was like, oh God, did they just ruin the chem? And now they kind of put it together, and
they're just super hot. They're just clicking on all cylinders. Yeah.
Yeah. LAFC in 2 here. I don't think Timbers will be able to get it done. Seattle and Houston, they play the winner there.
I want to say fun matchup, but it's really not that fun. Neither of these teams are super attractive to me. Seattle's they're both kind of workman-like teams, is their character. Seattle does have a little bit of flair, and Houston, they got Ache and all that, and Houston's capable of doing some things. But man, I'm thinking of the Charlotte Houston game, potentially the most boring game I watched all year, probably. That was like right before Leagues Cup, I think. But
yeah, it was bad.
To pick a winner here, I don't know. The winner is the viewers if it only goes 2 games instead of 3. I mean, is that too cynical to say?
No, I don't think so.
I think Houston probably. I think Houston can pull this off. Seattle's got the home field advantage, but I just think Houston has a little bit more cohesion. I think Seattle probably has slightly better individuals, but I think Houston's got the cohesion, and I think they pull out the win. Close call.
Seattle has the most stout defense. Therefore, I think they are built for this competition. I think they finish off Houston in 2, just based off that reasoning. I do think LAFC beat them in 3, a little bit scrappier, but I do think LAFC will advance against Seattle. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, LAFC is a machine. It's going to be tough to pick against them. They're going to have to beat themselves at this moment for sure, or maybe get bogged down by like all the delays and the breaks in the schedule. Maybe sort of kill their momentum. But yeah, LAFC wins in the semis and moves on to the conference final for sure.
RSL Minnesota.
I like what Minnesota's been doing, but I think RSL's got a little too much. This was my most improved player versus my young player. Award winners. Give me RSL though in 2.
I'm gonna go Minnesota in 3. There's something about the Loons that
something about the Loons. I love it.
You like that?
I love it. Yeah, it's great.
And then they'll be the Loons or RSL potentially will be playing the winner of LA Galaxy Colorado. What do you think?
Want to pick Colorado so bad, but they just kind of went into free fall at the end of the season. I think they might have peaked, unfortunately, as much as I love Mihailovic and sort of the whole team aesthetic thing.
You do love Georgie.
There. But LA is just too good. LA Galaxy, they're the number 2 seed by just sheer – they should have been the number 1. So
yeah,
we talked about Peck, Puig, Paintsel a little bit. I think LA Galaxy got what they got it in store to handle Colorado for sure. I think Colorado's already peaked, unfortunately, a few months ago. So
okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go LA Galaxy in 3. I think it'll be a little bit more difficult than a lot of people are giving them credit for, but I do think LA Galaxy at the end of the day are the better team, and then they knock off Minnesota here. So I have an LA versus LA, West Coast, and a Columbus versus Miami.
Right. I think it's tough to go
all the chalk.
Just tough to pick against the chalk. I mean, I hope we get some fun, exciting soccer. I really hope that Charlotte can advance past Orlando and give Miami a game. But in the end, the top teams are these top teams for a reason. I know anything can happen in a 1-game knockout. There's some coaching involved. Dean Smith's definitely going to be able to make an impact, I think. And I think if we get into a Charlotte, Miami, or if we get into a Seattle LAFC or Houston LAFC, you know, those are not going to be the most fun games to watch, I don't think, because it's going to be the lower seed just really trying to kill the match and play defensively, because there's so much firepower on these top teams like Cucho, Messi, Suarez, Buenga, Boguj, Puig, Peck. I mean, it's Diego Rossi. It's just like there's some serious offensive firepower. So for lower seeds to win, they're going to have to play the defensive effort and organization of their lives and somehow pull off, you know, either counterattack, score against the run of play, or win it in PKs.
Gotcha. So I personally have LA Galaxy and Columbus in the final. I think Columbus knocks off Miami. Yeah. So, and I have Columbus winning it. So we'll see how it goes. How about you?
Yeah, I think when you get into those top four, all of a sudden, and I focused on their firepower, right, to get them into, you know, the two conference finals, like LA versus LA, Miami versus Columbus. If we think the chalk's going to hold, and you're like, well, these teams are just way too explosive to be denied, you know. But then once they're all get in the final four together, who's got the best defense out of that group? I think it's Columbus. So I'm going to go with Columbus to sort of emerge as the best of the best. Could be an epic Eastern Conference final if it is Columbus, Miami.
Would be.
And it would be an epic, you know, El Tráfico, LA versus LA situation. Could, as much as I fear the semifinals could be kind of sluggish, the conference finals have a chance to be some of the, you know, some really entertaining, exciting soccer that really rewards fans. And then, you know, whatever happens in the cup final happens in the cup final. But I do think Columbus probably wins it. I think they go back to back. If we saw a rematch, I was at last year's MLS Cup final in Columbus. This year, if it's a rematch, LAFC versus Columbus, it would be in LA this time, right? I think, or no, actually, no, it would be in Columbus. Columbus, because they finished higher, they have a better record than LA.
Yeah,
they finished second in the Shield standings. So, yeah, I mean, I hate to see just a straight up repeat of last year's final, but it was a good match. So who knows?
Yeah,
I like the Crew to win it all though, again, and repeat.
And Leagues Cup rematch, LAFC.
Yeah,
it just has the storylines.
I mean, the best teams in MLS are just the best teams for a reason. I mean, that's the thing, and it's going to take some serious upsets to knock off the chalk here in this playoff situation.
I also am, you know, I'm holding a Columbus ticket and an LAFC ticket.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, wouldn't you love to see them facing each other in the final, and just you can just sit back, kick your feet up, and wait to cash?
Exactly. So I mean, Miami was just so overrated in terms of the books at the start of the year, and with the additions,
had to do it to them.
I just had to sprinkle on both of them and hope that one wins. So. I have some friends that are holding LAFC tickets. I also put a little bit on Columbus because I just think they're the best team in the league. But Danny, you know, we stayed for a while. We had some really good insight. It was really fun. It was a long MLS season, so it was good to kind of like recap and like really just like think out throughout the season in the summer. You know, what we watched, what we saw. So, you know, I really appreciate you coming on today. You know, obviously, I'll be seeing you in the first playoff game for Charlotte, and you know, definitely got to have you on to talk some Gunners here shortly.
Oh, I would love to, dude. Thanks for the invite. Much appreciated. I'll come talk with you anytime.
All right. Well, best of luck and see you soon.
Peace.